For 20 years, President Putin has ruled Russia. And for 2 decades, he has been deliberately indecipherable. He began friendly with presidents.
I looked the man in the eye. I found him to be very straightforward and trustworthy. I was able to get a sense of his soul.
But became an enemy of the West.
He's a butcher.
A murderous dictator.
This man cannot remain in power.
Has Ukraine revealed his true nature? Cunning, unyielding. 9 months before President Putin launched his invasion of Ukraine, I asked him about his ruthless image.
Are you a killer?
Look, I have heard dozens of such accusations, especially during the period of some grave events. And when it happens, I'm always guided by the interests of the Russian people and the Russian state.
But this same supposed strongman has spent years anxious not to catch the coronavirus, isolating himself from even his closest advisors. He is described by many as devoid of emotion, yet his fury towards the West and NATO has steadily reached boiling point. Listen to his unbridled bitterness, speaking to Western leaders back in 2007.
Those who are teaching us lessons themselves are somehow not very keen on learning them. I think the unipolar model is not only unacceptable, but also is impossible for the modern world in general. And it is not only because as if there were sole leadership in today's, especially in today's world, then there would be a lack of military, political, and economic resources. But what is more important is that the very model is unworkable, because at its base, there are no and cannot be any moral foundations for the modern civilization. No one feels safe because nobody can hide behind the international law as if a wall.
Tough but uneasy, cold yet furious. These are contradictions that reveal an important truth about Russia's leader, his deeply complex character. And few can doubt now that who President Putin truly is has global implications. It is no accident that the Kremlin looks like a castle. Inside the walls of this fortress, President Putin plots his next move. He is embattled, but by his own account, he has always been a survivor. Vladimir Putin tells a story of getting into a fight when he was a boy and of the lessons that he learned. You need to assume, he says, that there is no retreat and that you'll have to fight till the end. Those early years, when he says he learned how to fight, how to survive, and where it's said he gained his Machiavellian politics, played out in St. Petersburg during the Soviet era when the city was called Leningrad. Coming up, we visit Vladimir Putin's hometown, the city that shaped him and his ideology. Vladimir Putin was born in October 1952. He spent the first part of his life in this street, living in an apartment in this building. These are some of the facts that we know, but there's a lot that we don't know, because President Putin famously doesn't like people prying into his personal life. He did allow 3 journalists to write an autobiography 20 years ago, but even that was really part of his political campaign to introduce himself to Russia. So it was the story that he wanted to tell. But then everything in Vladimir Putin's life is a story that he wants to tell. A child of the Soviet Union, a communist empire that included Eastern Europe, especially Ukraine, Putin's first year was the last year of Stalin's iron-fisted rule over Russia. This was his elementary school and middle school. It still has the same Soviet-style name, School Number 193. Anyone who doesn't regret the passing of the Soviet Union doesn't have a heart, Putin would later say. Anyone who wants it restored has no brain. But it was his time in the Soviet KGB that many believe provided him with his most important education, and about which we still know very little. In 2021, at the launch of a new Russian fighter jet, I interviewed a member of his inner circle, the billionaire boss of Russian defense firm Rostec. There's very little we know about him then. What was he like? What did he do in Germany with you?
We both worked in intelligence.
So you can't talk about it?
I would rather not.
People say that he recruited agents in Germany as a KGB officer. Is that right? Was that what you were doing?
Let's not discuss this matter. You ask him yourself.
It was at this time in East Germany that Russia's former Deputy Foreign Minister Andrei Fedorov met Vladimir Putin for the first time.
I've seen just him as a person, but he was looking like a normal man, so...
A normal KGB officer?
No. He never looked like a KGB officer. No, absolutely no. Absolutely no.
So
some people are saying that he was even shy.
People talk about his charisma now. Did you see that charisma when you first met him?
The charisma came to him when he became president, and when he started to act, when he started to speak. He started to speak in a very normal people's language.
President Putin describes himself in his autobiography as determined to join the KGB. But after he does finally walk through these doors, he says one assessment of him described him as having a diminished sense of danger. It's now the headquarters of the FSB, Russian intelligence, and many of the people who worked in the KGB with the president still work in his government.
From the beginning of his work in St. Petersburg, he started to assemble the team, what is now sometimes called closed circle, the team. He was never a lone player. This is a very interesting difference. He is very different from some other politicians who are trying to be the only lonely wolves, strong, etc., etc. No. He created a team. He collected his friends. He collected his close friends from KGB, from the other bodies. And this team is a stable one. This is very important. There are no people who are running away. All of them are with him all these years, etc., etc. Someone closer, someone on a distance, but they are together. And this is probably the most important element of the whole mechanism of power in Russia, that it's a team. It's not a political party like in the West. It's not a kind of coalition or something like this. It's the leader and the team. And this team is united. That's why I always say that many people in the West think that they can split this team. It's impossible.
Survival is in Vladimir Putin's DNA. From the Second World War siege his family endured in St. Petersburg, to watching the collapse of the Soviet Union as a KGB officer. All of it would shape the president he became. Perhaps most of all, he is a leader who believes in the power and importance of a strong state. It is a principle for which he is prepared to do anything, including bending the truth. Will you commit now not to send any further Russian troops into Ukrainian sovereign territory?
Look, did we say that we were planning to send our armed formations anywhere? We conducted war games in our territory. How can this not be clear?
Just 8 months later, On the morning of February 24th, Russia launched missiles and airstrikes into Ukraine, followed by a huge ground invasion, causing the largest European refugee crisis since World War II. Millions displaced and cities in ruins.
He's a strong man. His charisma is based on what Russian people likes, decisive decision-making. So he knows and he takes responsibility for his decision. This makes him a leader. Ability to make decisions and to be responsible for implementation of this decision.
President Putin has had a firm grip on power since the turn of the millennium, even when in 2008 he handed power to an avowed member of his inner circle, Dmitry Medvedev. Look at this revealing moment. Caught on mic, President Obama engages with Medvedev at a summit.
My last election, yeah. And after my election, I have more flexibility. Yeah. I understand. I transmit this information to Vladimir and
Medvedev is the archetypal Putin ally. They were even filmed lifting weights together. Russia's president is famously fitness-obsessed. Medvedev has been considered more liberal than Putin, but no less obedient. So in 2012, it was easy for Putin to return to the presidency. And following a constitutional change in 2020, the Russian parliament, the Duma, signed a new law to keep Putin in the Kremlin until 2036. It could allow Putin, 69, to potentially remain in power until the age of 83. Today, his opposition is weakened, his leading critic poisoned and jailed, Alexei Navalny. In our interview, President Putin wouldn't even say his name.
His name can be anything. He's one of the individuals who are in prison. For me, he's one of the citizens of the Russian Federation who has been found guilty by a Russian court of law and is in prison.
Ksenia Sobchak ran against him in 2018. Back then, I joined her on the campaign trail. We're standing in Red Square,
yes.
The famous Red Square, where Stalin has stood right up to President Putin himself. That's the Kremlin. What do you think when you look at this? Because when you stand here, because this is what you are bidding to be the leader of.
Well, my dream is to see this Kremlin wall opened for all the people. In the center of the city, people who govern our country sit behind very big, very tight wall with cameras and guards all around. And that's it. And I don't think it's normal. I want my government to be transparent. I want to open those doors so people can go inside. This can become an open place, and the government can be inside too, but people should walk around parks, should watch how they come on the cars to the buildings where they sit, and it should be transparent. Now, in the center of our country is a place where they sit behind the wall with people who guard them.
Ksenia Sobchak is the daughter of Putin's early mentor, the then mayor of St. Petersburg, which gives her a unique insight into how Putin views democracy.
When I say the elections are fixed, I mean the whole process of elections. Elections is not only a process of putting your ballot into this box. It's the process of showing debates. It's the process of the same time allowance on the TV screens. It's the same propagandistic mechanisms for all the candidates. This is what I call elections. They are not fair. There's only one candidate who is shown always on the TV. It's Mr. Putin. There are no debates at all, which is totally illegal in my point of view. And people, everything is made them to vote for one candidate. That's why they're fixed. But if we discuss the process of votes, it's really, even in Putin's Russia, it's quite hard to invent those numbers out of blue. Of course, they can fix a couple of percents, but they can't, They can't really deal with millions of numbers.
President Putin's interactions with Russians are often staged managed, like when he answers questions from ordinary people at his annual press conference. Moments like this, when he was confronted by grieving mothers whose sons were lost in a 2000 submarine accident.
This mother whose son is on the Kursk. Do you have children? You must not have them, she says.
Or this in 2010, when he was confronted by a crowd of desperate villagers who lost homes in forest fires.
We do not ask for anything supernatural there. We ask that you give us a guarantee that by winter we will have housing.
A rare for a reason. For President Putin, being seen to have people's support is crucial to his image. It's why uprisings of the kind he saw his predecessor Boris Yeltsin suffer, or which he feared in Russia during 2013, which he witnessed from afar in Ukraine at the same time, are for him a threat to all he believes in. The same thinking informs his foreign policy. He was opposed to the West's interventions in Iraq and Libya, and militarily propped up the Assad regime in Syria in 2015. Putin saw the West's involvement in Syria as the latest episode in long-standing efforts to undermine governments around the world. After the break, we look at Putin's popularity in Russia and how his view of Russia's past haunts Ukraine's future. President Putin portrays himself as a man of the people, and large numbers of his people respond in kind. Not to show loyalty is increasingly dangerous. What do you think of President Putin?
No.
What do you think of President Putin?
Oh, no comments.
No comments?
Okay. Yes.
What do you think of President Putin?
Very good.
Very good.
Yeah, I fully agree with Putin. Any action, any decision, I all time agree with Putin.
He is an establishment man, increasingly seen with leaders of Russia's Orthodox Church. He never misses the chance to highlight his shared history with the Russian people, walking among veterans' families with a photo of his father, who fought in the Second World War. It is that conflict that he has called on to justify his Ukraine policy and its terrible consequences. President Vladimir Putin is a keen student of history. He has interwoven his personal history with the history of Russia. And right outside the Kremlin is this giant statue of another Vladimir, Vladimir the Great, Grand Prince of Kiev. 1,000 years ago, ruling this region from Kiev, this Vladimir introduced Christianity to this place. In 2021, President Vladimir Putin wrote a long essay talking about history and religion and referencing this guy. He uses history and religion to explain his opinions and to justify his actions. This Vladimir was only unveiled in 2016. Anyone who says President Putin's actions could never have been predicted, that he is unpredictable, that we couldn't have seen it coming, wasn't paying attention.
He is living with a very clear understanding that he has a mission, and this is driving force for him. He's not living for today. He is living for tomorrow, to fulfill his mission, to rearrange this country. This is the idea, main idea, and he was speaking about this number of time. He wants to rearrange. He wants to remove these tragic pages of Soviet Union's falling apart, etc., etc.
Today, insiders say, his inner circle has become smaller and his drive more determined. For Ukraine, it has meant facing a now 69-year-old Russian leader who is apparently prepared to take more risks and is increasingly sure of his own beliefs.
think that he has inside him, he has a feeling that he has a mission. And part of the mission is to rearrange the things which has happened in 1991. That's why he's saying that Soviet Union is the destruction of the Soviet Union is the worldwide catastrophe, etc., etc. And he is living with this mission to rearrange post-Soviet space. Not to restore the Soviet Union, it's impossible, but to rearrange this post-Soviet space to make it something like, and not to lose the countries around. And that's why I think he's eager to continue to be as a president of Russia, because he sees himself that this mission is not completed. He needs some years more. He needs some years. He did a lot of things.
President Putin and his closest friends always claim he is ready to compromise and accuse the West of making compromise impossible. Just listen to this answer from a member of his inner circle just months before the Ukraine invasion.
You're one of President Putin's oldest friends. What do you think we get wrong about him?
It's hard for me to say how you see him, whether you consider him a foe to the U.S. or a friend to the U.S. But to me, it seems that Mr. Putin is a perfectly reasonable man who strives for cooperation with any country, with any state. We are ready for cooperation, and there was a time when we had a real wide-ranging cooperation with many U.S. companies, but then sanctions were announced. To what end? Unknown.
But there can be little doubt that the die is cast for Russia's autocrat. In April, the United Nations General Assembly voted to suspend Russia from the UN Human Rights Council and voiced grave concern at the continuing human rights and humanitarian crisis in Ukraine. Russia called the move illegal.
No one knows what kind of decision he will make. For many people, he is still unpredictable. He's still unknown.
He has been underestimated many times before. Take this magazine cover from 2012. But in Ukraine, he may have overestimated his own leadership, perhaps for the first time. When I interviewed him in 2021, I asked him whether he would ever hand over power the way his predecessor, President Yeltsin, did.
It is a natural biological process. At some point, naturally, someday, we will all be replaced. You will be replaced at where you are. I will be replaced at where I am. Of course, somebody will come and replace me at some point. If anybody else, and if I see that person, even if that person is critical of some areas of what I have been doing, if I can see that this is an individual who has constructive views, that he or she is committed to this country and is prepared to sacrifice his entire life to this country, not just a number of years, no matter his personal attitude to me, I will make sure, I will do everything to make sure that such people will get support.
But for President Putin and his team, stepping aside may no longer be an option. Anyone looking for a sign that his rule might be drawing to a close would not find any clues at this year's military parade in Red Square. The president and his people appearing united. His military visibly behind him.
Hurrah!
His future and Russia's as intertwined as ever.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.